The cabin 3 berth base framing is coming together nicely, as is the lengthy epoxy coating. Now before I can put all these beams in for the berth base, I need to get this diesel tank sorted. Well, as you can see, the tank has been removed. I really need to do a proper job on... Well, I've hummed and hawed about just how I'm going to get this diesel tank secured. What is it? Okay, well, there we go. Now before I can put all these beams in for the berth base, I need to get this diesel tank sorted. It's in place, but it's not bolted down, so there's not much to do with it. I just need to drill a couple of holes through the whole floor at the back there, and also in a couple of stiffeners to bolt the front in place. So whilst I'm waiting for the last coat on a couple of those bits of rosewood, I'll just get the securing finished for this diesel tank. Okay, just to explain a couple of things regarding the brackets for securing this diesel tank. When I had this made up, as you'll see, I had 2 angle brackets on the forward edge here, but that didn't work when it came to getting it installed. So as you can see on the starboard side here, that's a 316 stainless steel angle bracket welded to the 316 tank, and I did have this same on the port side, but in order to get the tank in, because I was getting this tank between the engine beds on either side, obviously these brackets overhang wider than the width of the tank, and so I had to come up with an idea to get the tank in. Cutting both of them off was definitely an option, but what I decided to do was, as you can see here, I ended up making a slot in the flange on the top for one side, and I didn't want to take that all the way through because it would have weakened this. Of course, I could have welded that up with something after, but in the event that the tank needs to come out, I need to have a way to be able to install and remove it. And even if I had made a slit on the other side, the same size as this one, it would not have been enough to have both brackets on and get it down. And that's why I came up with the idea of making a cut in one side, which, having removed one of the brackets, was enough to get that down. And for those interested, there's a prior episode where I put this in with a bang, and so that was my way out of it, putting a slot cut here, removing that side. That enabled the tank to go in, and in the event it needs to come out, I'll be able to remove it the same way. But what it means is I do need to come up with another idea about securing that end. I do have another plan where I'm going to put a bit of a packer underneath. Even though I expect the brackets to take the weight, I just figure it'd be nothing for me to glue a little packer underneath each corner just to share the load. So with this corner, I've come up with a cunning plan. Well, as you can see, the tank has been removed. The reason for that is I really need to do a proper job on deburring and painting those holes that I'm drilling. It would just be asking for rust problems ahead if I was to try and just bolt all that together without being able to get to the backs of those holes and get some paint on there. So that was the smartest thing, and I'll tell you right now, it was definitely easier because I had somebody come and help me do that, but it is not an easy thing to remove. I mean, it can be removed, as you can see, and that was always the plan, that in the event that should it ever need to be removed, it can be. I've got clear access to these areas that I'm drilling the holes into. I can finish those and get some paint on them. There'll be a second coat put on tomorrow, and then the tank can go back. Well, I've hummed and hawed about just how I'm going to get this diesel tank secured. Like everything, first impressions are deceiving. So the problem is that once the tank is in on the inside of these engine floors, I will not be able to get my hand on the other side of these stiffeners, which is what the tank's being bolted to, which is why in the first instance I needed to remove the tank so that I could get to the backs to deburr and coat them. And of course, humming and hawing about, so what's the best way to do this? What I've come up with is I'm going to adhere these 316 stainless bolts. After passing them through from behind, they will be bonded permanently to those stiffeners. I'll be using the Fixtech FMP 100 for that, which will not let go. And so it's fingers crossed that I've got all of the holes lined up so that when the tank goes in, the starboard side bolts just slip through. The ones on the port side here, they can actually be done later because I still need to make up the bracket itself for those 2 holes. I've given the backs of those holes a quick sand. I'll give them a wipe with the cloth just to dampen them because the FMP 100 likes a bit of a moist surface. It helps the glue go off. And what I've also come up with is I've just cut off some short pieces of that water hose, which is just beautifully loose over those bolts. And the idea will be to put some glue on the back of those stiffeners where the bolt's going to go through, place that spacer over the bolt, and then put the nut on to hold it in place. And the purpose of that little bit of tubing is so that the nut won't get bonded to the bolt and the stiffener as well. I'm sure there'll be some comic relief as well. Right, try not to bump the berth base. Right, can you just keep your end raised?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to put that under there?
Exactly what I want to do. So we'll just do the pivot.
I think it's going to have to come out a bit and we tip it over more.
Down we go. Oh, is that not going down? You've got to lift your end a bit more, I think.
That's on the roof, that's as high as it's going to go.
Okay, well, there we go. Lift your end. Let your end down. Your end up a bit. That's too much. Good. And that's the tricky bit now. Going back over those bolts, which I can't even see. We'll go back. Oh, one bolt's on. It's on. It's actually on. Those holes look like they're lining up back there.
They are now, yeah.
Well, that worked. Well, that really has gone in a treat. I am so happy with that. As you saw, it dropped in without fuss at all, really. The pre-drilling of those holes and adhering those bolts through that stiffener plate so that they could slot in without extra expansion of the holes is just fantastic. As I said before, for this side I'll make up a bracket which will be made up of a bit of heavy angle and plate to bolt onto those 2 bolts, and that with the 3 bolts onto the whole floor at the back there will mean that that tank won't be going anywhere. And yes, everybody, in the next episode, the final touches before the reward of getting that berth fitted. Please like, subscribe, hit that bell and share. I'd really appreciate that.